Chapter 24. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs, and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender, and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken, the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch, therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Конечно, противники учили ходить условно.
请向广场上方观看。
عندك بس
Hi, Gary Stearman.
This program is being recorded on the 19th of June, Tuesday, for release on Wednesday, June 20th. And today, as promised yesterday, we're going to talk about some amazing stories coming out of the Middle East. The United States and Russia deploying in Syria. From Debka File, the failure of U.S. President Barack Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree on terms for Syria and Iran on Monday at the G20 summit of Los Cabos, Mexico, holds the potential for three equally disastrous scenarios to unfold in Syria. Number one, it could degenerate into another Afghanistan, and by the way, you may have noticed that it's on its way toward doing that right now. Number two, it could degenerate into another Balkans that is dividing Syria up into several territories, each represented by one enemy force. Or number three, it could be the next arena of war for Al-Qaeda. All three possibilities are just about equally foreseeable. From Debka File, Middle East military tensions around Syria shot up again last Monday, June 18th, with the news reported by the semi-official Iranian news agency Fars that a joint Russian, Chinese, Iranian exercise is to take place in Syria. It was described as, quote, the biggest of its kind ever staged in the Middle East, end quote, with 90,000 personnel, 400 airplanes, and 900 tanks taking part. As part of its preparations, Beijing is reported to have asked Egyptian authorities to permit the passage through the Suez Canal in late June of 12 naval ships, heading for the Syrian port of where else? Tartus. That's where the Russian fleet is already docked. The Syrian port of Tartus, where Moscow maintains a naval and marine base. Debka File reported earlier this week that Russian naval vessels with Marines on board were heading for Tartus. The large-scale maneuver was announced in Tehran on the first day of the nuclear crisis talks in Moscow between Iran and 6 world powers. So you notice that this story started with another story, and I'm going to reread this, which I consider to be a very, very important factor. The failure of U.S. President Barack Obama and Russian President Vladimir Putin last Monday at the G20 summit in Los Cabos, Mexico, is what I think really put the seal on this whole thing. And it was reported in a number of different news agencies that Putin and Obama did not get along well at all in those talks. In fact, they more or less lined up head-to-head as enemy adversaries, and there was very little peace talk going on there. I have here from the Times of Israel, June 19th, quote, Iran, Syria, Russia, China are planning, quote, the biggest ever war games in the Middle East, according to an unconfirmed report. According to the article, 4 countries are going to be preparing war games, and we've already described those games as having at least 90,000 participants on the ground. The report states that, quote, atomic submarines from Russia and warships, aircraft carriers, and mine-clearing destroyers, as well as Iranian battleships and submarines, will also arrive in Syria, and that Egypt has let those 12 ships go through the Suez Canal from China on their way to the eastern Mediterranean. Financial Times of London says that Russia has announced that it's readying 2 warships to sail to Syria to protect Russian citizens. My goodness. Let me reread this. Russia has announced it's readying 2 warships to sail to Syria to protect Russian citizens in a sign that it is taking precautions against a worsening security situation there. Again, and we've said this so many times over the last 3 months or so, each day in the Middle East, you see a slight tightening, a slight drama, an ever so slight increase in the drama and tension in the Middle East. And here we see it again. A spokesman for the Russia's Black Sea Fleet, a gentleman by the name of Vyacheslav Truchkarov, says that the mission would be undertaken, quote unquote, in case of necessity. What would be the necessity? The necessity, in my opinion, would be if military tensions develop to such a state that Russia fears backlash along its southern flank, here comes the fleet. And Russia has already begun to feel that pressure. Russia's precautions came as Barack Obama, the U.S. president, and Vladimir Putin, his Russian counterpart, called for an end to violence in Syria and moves toward political transition to a democratic, pluralistic political system after talks last Monday at the G20 summit in Mexico. Well, as we've already seen, those talks came to nothing, and Putin and Obama did not see eye to eye at all. Again, the situation in Syria grows daily more tense, more dramatic. It becomes, I think, a tripwire in the Middle East. And in Isaiah 17, which is a prophecy that we've read so many times, concerning the destruction of Damascus, Syria's capital, let's read some words that we've heard before, but now in the context of military maneuvers in the Mediterranean. Listen to these words. Isaiah 17:12. Woe to the multitude of many people which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. You know, we've tended to think of that as a metaphor, the sound of the sea and the sound of the water being kind of a metaphor for people moving. But maybe it's not as much of a metaphor as it is a harbinger of the idea that much of the weaponry that is beginning to join this Middle East war is coming by way of the Mediterranean, the Suez Canal, and then around to the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Arabia, so forth and so on. The Arabian Sea, you know, might pay to reread these words. Woe to the multitude of many people which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters. But God shall rebuke them. They shall flee far off, and shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. And at evening tide trouble, and before the morning he is not. This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us. Wow. Well, something to think about. I've got a lot of news releases here, and not a single one of them points at a lessening of tensions. Each and every single one of these news releases is pointing toward increased tensions and increased militarism in the Middle East. It's fascinating to watch, a little bit frightening. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122:6. They shall prosper that love thee. Gary Stearman. Keep looking up, everybody.
Several Japanese self-defense force fighter jets were scrambled early Wednesday after Russian military aircraft were spotted near Japan's airspace. The Russian aircraft remained in the area for 12 hours. Japan's defense ministry says 2 Russian Tu-95 bombers and an A-50 surveillance jet approached western Japan over the San-in region on Wednesday morning. Japanese fighter jets immediately took off and tracked them. The ministry says the 2 bombers stayed near the Japanese archipelago for 12 hours, while the A-50 circled over waters of San-in for 9 hours. The A-50 is equipped with an early airborne warning and control system. At around midday, another two Su-24 surveillance planes approached Japanese airspace between Hokuriku and Hokkaido in northern Japan. They stayed over the Sea of Japan for several hours. None of the planes intruded into Japanese airspace, but the ministry says it's unusual for Russian military aircraft to fly in such numbers so close to the country. The ministry says it's the first time Russian planes equipped with early warning systems have been spotted near Japan. It says the Russian Air Force may have been conducting sophisticated surveillance drills.
A Japanese think tank says China is strengthening its military capabilities to protect and expand its maritime interests. It asserts that China is obliged to explain the reasons for intensifying its marine activities to neighboring nations and the international community. The National Institute for Defense Studies released on Friday a report on China's recent rapid military buildup. The report says China wants to pursue economic development and military strategy through maritime tactics. It maintains that the country is deploying ships and aircraft with good maneuverability to strengthen patrols in the South and East China Sea. The report notes that China is becoming increasingly cautious over a new U.S. defense strategy that places importance on the Asia-Pacific region. The brief adds China wants to boost deterrence by demonstrating its military operational capabilities. It concludes that Chinese policy could move in one of two directions. The country could pursue a hardline, unyielding stance or use its growing power for stability with international partners.
Japan's Coast Guard is on high alert against increased activity by Chinese maritime survey vessels in Japan's exclusive economic zone in the East China Sea. The two countries are supposed to give prior notice before carrying out surveys in the other side's zone, but the Chinese side is ignoring the agreement and continuing its activities. The Coast Guard used to spot the ships only a few times a year, but recently they're being seen every month. 7 cases have been reported since July. The Coast Guard says it receives notification from China, but many of the vessels are in areas other than those specified. It says the Chinese ships insist they're conducting legitimate research when they reply to warnings from surveillance vessels or planes, but some ships do not respond to the calls. The Coast Guard adds that more Chinese fisheries surveillance vessels are being spotted near the Senkaku Islands in Okinawa Prefecture following the collision incidents in September last year.
China wants to investigate the seabed and natural resources in the East China Sea, partly for military purposes. By entering the zone many times, they are aiming to protect their interests in the East China Sea.
The boats have appeared 14 times so far, and one of them intruded into Japanese maritime territory in August for the first time.
Japanese defense officials say 2 Russian bombers took an unusual course circling around Japan. The Defense Ministry says 2 Tu-95 bombers from the Russian Air Force approached Japanese airspace near the Strait of Tsushima on Thursday morning. Fighter planes from Japan's Air Self-Defense Force scrambled to track the bombers. The aircraft later flew southward over the East China Sea and then south of Okinawa's main island. Afterwards, it moved to the Pacific side before skirting along the Japanese archipelago northward. The bombers continued flying over the Strait of Soya while being fueled mid-air. They then headed south on the Japan Sea side before leaving areas near Japan. The Defense Ministry says the bombers did not violate Japan's airspace, but it was an unusual route for any Russian military aircraft. The Russian Air Force has been active around Japan recently. Bombers and spy planes have approached Japanese airspace 5 times since last month.
Fire department.